Welcome back to Am I Famous Yet? This is Chapter 8, called Sometimes You Smoke the Marijuana, Yes? I don't care who you are, what your lifestyle choices are, or what the level of legality of cannabis currently is in your state of residence. When you are asked that question by a jackbooted Italian carabinieri in an interview room at the Milano airport, the only sensible answer is an emphatic no. But let's back up a second. I tried marijuana maybe half a dozen times total in high school and college. Unlike Bill Clinton, I did indeed inhale. Clearly, I wasn't repulsed by it, or I wouldn't have tried it more than once, but also as clearly, I wasn't particularly enchanted by it, or I would have partaken any one of the innumerable times it has been offered to me since then. I haven't touched the stuff in 35 years. I haven't even been tempted. It's just not for me. Other than an occasional adult beverage, I don't dabble in controlled substances at all, which is no mean feat in the rock and roll business. There's a lot of it around. A lot. Even when drinking, 1 or 2 beers is my entire night. I'm a cheap date. I come from temperate people. My 101-year-old grandmother told me that she doesn't remember ever going to a bar in her life, much less drinking a beer. My mother, the wild child, would occasionally enjoy a pina colada once a year on vacation. What a rebel. Of my half-dozen Mary Jane experiences, I remember exactly 2 of them. The first was quite young when I was in high school. A joint got passed to me on a camping trip that had something else in it besides just weed. I wasn't informed of the presence of whatever chemical this was. I never found out what it was. I only knew that I spent most of the night envisioning a bleached steer skull with a barbed wooden tongue, raspily intoning "Cutincularum" over and over again. It was an unpleasant evening, to say the very least. That turned me off from ever wanting to try weed again for a few years. The only other experience I recall was also my last experience with it. Someone passed me a joint in the audience at a reggae concert. What are the odds of this happening? Ordinarily, I would have politely declined or just passed it along to the next person as a courtesy, but this time my scientific curiosity got the better of me. One almost gets a contact high just breathing the air of most Rastaman vibrations. I thought I would try a couple of hits just to see what the hype was all about. Just a few short minutes later, I said, "Oh, I get it." It was a light bulb moment. The buzz one experiences when one is upon the pot is called that because one has the sensation that one's whole body is vibrating. You literally feel like your body has become some sort of high-rise apartment door entry tone. At a reggae concert, the bass is coming out of the PA speakers at fire hose velocity. It's loud, low, and very boomy by design. The buzz that you get from the doobie feels like it's at the same frequency of the sound vibrations of the bass. Suddenly the music is moving through you, with you. The bass amplifies the buzz. I finally got it. I understood it. And I never felt the need to touch the whoopee weed ever again. I had a similar psychoacoustic musical revelation the first time I saw the band Journey play arena rock in an actual arena. The length of time between each drum strike was the length of reverb the sound bouncing off the back wall of a hockey rink makes. If the notes came any faster than that, the resulting sound would just be mud. Think about the giant Phil Collins tom-tom fill on "In the Air Tonight," the air drummer's national anthem. That's maximum speed drumming in the acoustics of any gymnasium. I had the same reaction that night as I had at the reggae concert. Oh, I get it. That night didn't involve any recreational chemicals, however. But let us return to the arrivals hall at Milano Airport in scenic and sunny northern Italy. We had just landed after a 7-hour flight from New York. This was to be our 7th or 8th van tour with a singer-songwriter I was working with at the time. She also happened to be my live-in girlfriend of 4 years. We knew the drill on these tours, knew our booking agent, knew many of the promoters already, and knew every curve on the autostrada between Milano and Roma. Well, I did anyway. In addition to playing bass on those tours, I was also performing the duties of road manager, merchandise salesman, guitar tech, van driver, and of course, the loving and supportive boyfriend. But at least I wasn't getting paid extra for any of this, so that was cool. Italy was a romantic place and a grand adventure for us, even if the autostrada started to look like the New Jersey Turnpike pretty quickly. By that time, we knew enough rudimentary Italian to function as tourists, though certainly not enough to philosophize. We could ask where the bathroom was, how many kilometers to the next town, and most importantly, for food and drink. Un bicchiere di vino rosso, per favore. Though I knew how to say that when asking for a glass of red wine, I had to Google it just now to be able to know how to write it. We were functionally illiterate in Italian even then. Being partially trained musicians did help us a little. Most written musical terms are in Italian. When barreling down the highway where the speed limit signs seemed to be only to be casual recommendations rather than the law of the land, I remember seeing a sign that said in big red letters, rallentare. Scrolling through my dusty memories from sight reading class, I remember that rallentando, written below a staff of music, means that the tempo should start to decrease. So that road sign clearly meant, oh shit, hit the brakes. While we were waiting in the long line to exit the Milano airport through the nothing to declare lane at customs, we noticed the very imposing looking carabinieri coming down the road with their black shirts, black boots and hats, looking every bit as intimidating as their fascist throwback uniforms were designed to be. They even had a huge black German shepherd with them who was sniffing everyone for drugs. They didn't have bomb sniffers back in those days. As the big old toothy black dog got up next to me, he made the faintest whimper without even slowing down in his very active olfactory tour of duty. It was an almost imperceptible gesture, not at all like a pointer at attention or a baying bloodhound, but to his handler it was like a fire alarm had gone off. I don't remember exactly what was said. Nobody put their hands on me, but the sentiment was immediate and clear. You, in the room. This was not a good position to be in. We were aspiring guests in their country, hoping to put out a hat and make money as wandering troubadours with nary a work permit in sight. Plus, I don't know how well you get along with authority figures, but they immediately don't seem to like me because I fit the profile. Oh sure, once they get to know me, they're always surprised to find out what a great guy I am, and that I don't seem to act anything like what they were expecting from my anti-establishmentarian rock and roll regalia. I like cops just fine. They just don't seem to immediately like me. At this point, I had no idea why I was being singled out or what was even happening. This was before the time of prominent so-called random searches made at airports, which I enjoy so frequently as a touring musician these days. Also, I was trying to get out of the airport, not into it. It wasn't a security issue. As soon as I was in the room with all of my luggage that I had packed for the 6-week tour along with my bass, the officer now in charge of my fate asks me, "Parla Italiano?" As I mentioned, I had absorbed enough of what I call truck stop Italian to get by, but I wasn't willing to chance anything being lost in translation that could impinge upon my immediate physical freedom, nor was I of any mind to assist this gentleman in the prosecution of his constabulary agenda against me. "No," I answered, semi-truthfully. That's when he hit me with a question out of left field in heavily Italian-accented broken English. "Sometimes you smoke the marijuana, yes?" "No," I answered after a stunned half a beat, though completely truthfully. Now I began to worry. Though not about my potential ride on the Midnight Express, I was in possession of no questionable pharmaceuticals whatsoever. Instead, I began to fret about the several hundred CDs I had secreted in my luggage to sell at the songwriters' concerts. These were saleable goods potentially subject to an import duty that I was planning not to declare. The smuggling operation I was involved in was partially to dodge paying the tax, but mostly as a protest of the Italian bootleg record sales industry, which seemed to be rampant and ubiquitous. Case in point, the songwriter I was touring with had only a few magazine reviews and a couple of regional television appearances, and already we had found a live bootleg concert CD in one record store. It didn't inspire us to want to pay money into a system that so clearly didn't seem to be doing anything to protect artists' rights. Yeah, that's it. We were trying to make a political statement and stick it to the man. It had nothing to be with us being too cheap to pay the duty. I started to sweat a little. I'm quite assured the experienced customs agent sensed my discomfort. He asked me to open my bass bag and all of its various storage pockets. "What's this?" he asked. "Well, that's a guitar tuner," I replied. "What's this?" he asked. "That's a package of extra strings," I replied. Then out of the blue he says again, "Sometimes you smoke the marijuana, yes?" "No," I reply. But now I'm confused. He just asked me that. What was up with the repeat question? Is that the only English he knows? Now that the bass case and all of its contents had been thoroughly molested, he continued his search of my carry-on messenger bag. In it he found my shaving kit, which I guess is where most people hid their contraband. He pulled out each item one by one and gave them a careful examination. "What's this?" he asked. "Hand lotion," I replied. "What's this?" "Vitamins." "Sometimes you smoke the marijuana, yes?" "No." This continued. He must have asked me that question at least half a dozen times. "What's this? What's this? Sometimes you smoke the marijuana, yes?" Each time I answered, "No." Perhaps he thought I would crack under pressure and confess, yes, I done it. I'm glad I done it and I'd do it again. I don't know. After a fair amount of time into these proceedings, I finally explained to him that I was a musician, that I worked in nightclubs, and that it was possible that other patrons in nightclubs maybe smoked the marijuana, yes. Not me, of course, never me. This seemed to satisfy him. He allowed me to repack my carry-on and bass bags and exit the interview room. Incomprehensibly, he stopped just short of opening the big duffel bag with the hundreds of contraband CDs in it. As I exited the airport on slightly wobbly knees, I realized that my smuggling operation was complete. The cruel irony of the situation was that they weren't even my CDs. They were my girlfriend's. I was just the CD mule in the operation. Honest, Your Honor, I was just holding them for someone. Only later did it occur to me what must have happened. 3 days before we flew out on that trip to Italy, I played at an outdoor street fair in New York City. On a set break, some of those naughty band boys were passing around a left-handed cigarette. I wasn't partaking, but I was near enough to them that 3 days and 4,000 miles later, a German shepherd had the good nose and good sense to know that I was wearing the same pair of jeans and was clearly up to no good. At the end of that tour, we drove the promoter's band back to the airport in Milano to hand it off to another band who were arriving the same day we were leaving. These were some blues guys we knew from New York who were using the same bookie agent as us. It was amusing and also a little odd to see them in an airport in a foreign country. When we found them, only 2 of the 3 were present. The drummer was missing. They said that the Carabinieri had pulled him out of line and took him into a side room. Oh boy, I thought, I know exactly what he's going through right now. About 20 minutes later, we saw the drummer rambling toward us down the airport concourse, seemingly without a care in the world. I knew this guy and knew what kind of a stoner I thought he was, though I had never actually witnessed him enjoying the wacky tobacco. He just had the complete countenance and demeanor of one who frequently partook. When we asked him what happened to him, he said, "They kept asking me if I smoked weed. I told them, yeah, but I don't have any with me." Dude, wrong answer. He was lucky he wasn't on a one-way bus trip to Papillon Island. Wow. An interesting footnote about that tour was that it also marked the simultaneous complete disintegration of my domestic situation. We had been doing these tours as a trio with 2 hotel rooms. The girlfriend and I would share one room, the drummer would have his own room. Shortly before this tour, I had introduced the girl to a pal of mine whom I knew well from my record business days. He emailed me the very next day asking what her romantic status was, calling her, quote, a Hebraic homegirl deluxe, end quote. He was right, she was. She and I had an understanding that while out in public in business settings, we were not to announce our relationship. She had the idea that as a chick singer-songwriter that she needed to appear to be romantically available as a way to allow fans and business people alike to fantasize about her. This wasn't completely far-fetched. They wanted the Beatles to disguise their relationships at the height of their popularity to preserve their marketability as pinups. It was an arrangement that I went along with. I wrote back to my record company pal and told him that I think she has a boyfriend, though I didn't mention that this had been me for the past 4 years and that we lived together. In retrospect, perhaps I should have, because what I told him did nothing to deter his advances, apparently. One evening, as we were about to go to sleep, she told me that she was in love with my friend. I was stunned, I think. I just sat there and blinking slowly, not knowing how to react. We hadn't been having any relationship problems that I was aware of. It seemed to come from out of left field. That six-week Italian tour was already booked with plane tickets purchased. We agreed that I should do the tour for a number of reasons, all economic apparently. See above about the number of hats I was wearing on those tours without compensation. I went from sharing a hotel room with my girlfriend on the road in a romantic Italy to suddenly rooming with the drummer. Though he was a dear friend of mine, it just wasn't the same. That was a long 6 weeks for me. She was constantly sneaking off to find a payphone to call back home to her new love. I was pretending not to notice. They ended up getting married and having the exact type of wedding ceremony in the exact location she always told me that we would be married in one day. Apparently the groom in that scenario was completely interchangeable. I don't know if the new husband knew this. They ended up having 2 kids. That breakup caused personal and professional complications for me. The personal ones were obvious. I was gutted, devastated, crushed. The professional hurt was that her career was just starting to take off at the time. All of the hard road miles I had done with her were just starting to pay off with some higher profile gigs and a couple of TV appearances. Some good pals of mine got to play those shows with her instead of me. I was sure that her star was on the rise and that I was being left in the dust. While I take no pleasure in these facts, with the benefit of hindsight, it turns out that I didn't miss much personally or professionally. Her career never really went anywhere. She managed to sabotage many of her professional connections and sour most of the opportunities she was given. That was one of her many talents. It was like she had an Uzi pointed at her own foot all the time. She and my former pal also got divorced about 10 years later. I felt badly for their kids. It did remind me, however, of the ancient proverb, if you sit by the banks of the river long enough, eventually the bodies of your enemies will come floating by.